The Legend of Zelda is not about Zelda. And it's obvious and explicit as to why that is now, and always has been, the case. Link, our longtime main character, the legendary hero, is a silent protagonist. A stand-in for the player that we can project our own thoughts, feelings, and values onto as the player. This was common in the formative days of video game development back in the early 1980s. RPGs with speaking protagonists and deep backstories were still many years away when The Legend of Zelda was first released for the Nintendo Famicom back in 1986. Link, in a way, is our link to the world of Hyrule, allowing the player a hand in shaping the story with our own perception of the events of the game, and he's allowed us to do so for over 30 years at this point. Over and over again.
And I do it again, too!
It's only natural that our eyes would begin to wander to the series' second most prominent character, and begin to wonder, what's she got going on over there? Not out of some desire to box our favorite swordsman out of the driver's seat, or some sudden requirement to have a female protagonist, but out of a genuine desire to explore the story from a different perspective for a change. Believe me, I'll buy whatever Nintendo puts out at this point. They've more or less earned my loyalty with their innovative approach to new spins on old gameplay.
Shut up and take my money!
That does, however, appear to be the limit on Aonuma and Miyamoto's willingness to innovate. Whenever asked whether they have any intentions of innovating in regard to Zelda's stories and the characters, they always respond with, only in service to the gameplay. Which, fair enough, but if you make games follow the same basic format every installment, then by design, the story will never stray far from the model that best serves that format. Zelda's been given a bow, magic spells, a possessed suit of armor, and a ninja outfit that disguises her as a man.
They almost seem resistant to the idea of imbuing her with the ability and agency to defend herself, and not sidelining her for 80% of the game.
Why not more deeply explore the perspective of the game's titular character? Why not try for a co-op tag team experience of Link and Zelda versus Ganondorf? Or a magic-focused game, arming her with a variety of spells and magic items. They've done it before with Princess Peach, more than once. And I thought we were finally getting that with the newest Zelda title, Echoes of Wisdom.
Only to saddle her with an enemy summoning ability and a sword fighter form that only lasts a couple of seconds.
I mean, would an array of varied attack and utility combat spells really have been so onerous? Why has Nintendo taken this long to make one of their most prominent and recognizable characters playable in an actual licensed game? And why does Nintendo seemingly find the idea of making Zelda an active combatant so repellent? What do you think?
I'm Elekidra, and this is Growing Up a Gamer, Why Nintendo Refuses to Make a Fighter Out of Zelda. Like many of us, I had my first meeting with The Legend of Zelda at a friend and relative's house. After dinner during one of these visits, I took the chance to play the newest addition to the Zelda series at the time. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Playing this early exemplar of a 3D Zelda title, I experienced all the facets of the Zelda gameplay paradigm. The sword and shield, dungeon items, puzzles to solve, and a world to explore. And while The Legend of Zelda had possessed each of these facets since the beginning, Link to the Past being a standout, it was the popularity and commercial success of this staple N64 title that ensured all the games that came after would roughly follow this format. They had experimented early on with Zelda 2 on the NES, and that game's reception is mixed, to say the least. In addition, Ocarina did something else in regards to the titular princess. It made her a character. Before Ocarina, Zelda was little more than a MacGuffin, a prize to be won, a symbol of victory. She said little and did even less. The hero rescues the princess, and they all live happily ever after. End of story. Ocarina changed that for the better. While still sidelined for a portion of the game, Zelda serves less as a prop in the story and more of an ally. She sets you on the path to challenging Ganondorf, and supports you from the sidelines. After the time skip, she disguises herself as Sheik, a Sheikah warrior who provides the means to fast travel and enter the temples of the sages. Those of us who began our Zelda journey with Ocarina remember what it felt like to explore Hyrule with young Link, knowing Zelda was counting on us back at the castle, and the relief we felt when she managed to escape the fall of Hyrule Castletown. Not to mention the shock and disbelief of learning Sheik was Zelda all along. The princess is an active partner throughout the game, just one small step from joining you on the battlefield. And while Zelda was wholly absent from Majora's Mask, this pattern of partnership continues on in most of the Wii and DS titles. Zelda is a plucky pirate in The Wind Waker, aiding you from the start of your quest to save your sister, which becomes a journey to thwart Ganondorf yet again. This was the first Zelda I ever beat on console, and remains the source of my favorite incarnation of Zelda. One who was not only willing, but able to pick up a weapon and fight Ganon at your side. Twilight Princess was a step down for her in this regard, with Midna taking over as your partner while Zelda falls back into a tertiary support role. Skyward Sword Zelda has her own adventure concurrent to your own, while Spirit Tracks actually makes her your companion character. At this point, Zelda has served in every conceivable backseat role to Link, and that's actually surprising that it's taken this long to make her playable. Although I'm more inclined to believe this is due to Nintendo viewing Link as the only conceivable protagonist for the series, much like Samus is the only conceivable hero for the Metroid series. The difference being that Metroid is the story of Samus Aran's journey through life as an interstellar bounty hunter, while The Legend of Zelda is the story of Hyrule and the cycle of reincarnation and war between Link, Zelda, and Ganon. These aren't the same people from game to game, but iterations across thousands of years. And it's only conceivable that one of these iterations of Zelda would have the wherewithal to pick up a sword or spell and fight Ganon at Link's side from start to finish. Or even take on the King of Evil herself, if that's what the moment called for, with the intention of defeating him herself, and not simply sealing him away for Link to deal with later. Echoes is Nintendo's first attempt at that. Nintendo hit a rough patch with their Wii U console in the early 2010s. And like most of their franchises, it could be argued that Zelda stagnated for a few years. This was the time of HD remakes. Both Wind Waker and Twilight Princess were remade for the Wii U, while Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask were remade on the 3DS, giving those of us who'd played them as kids a chance to experience them with improved graphics and features. They provided quality of life changes that included not only high-definition remasters, but shaved the gristle off of the old titles by removing tedious fetch and padding quests that don't sufficiently serve the overall experience. But naturally, a remake is not an opportunity to innovate in regards to story. Fortunately, throughout the remake era, while the console situation remained in flux, Zelda's primary dev team was out crafting the most mechanically innovative title to date. One that not only rocked the world of Zelda fans, but the entire gaming industry as a whole. The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. There's very little I can say about Breath of the Wild that hasn't already been said. It revolutionized not only the Zelda franchise, but the entire gaming industry as a whole, with an open-world exploratory approach to the classic model. Weapon fragility to encourage the use of a variety of combat tools, dungeon items given at the start of the game to make every puzzle solvable no matter where you encounter it, often with more than one solution. Tears of the Kingdom took things 2 steps further, with a weapon build and creation system that grants the player near limitless possibilities of play. But wait.
Wait a minute!
We're here to figure out why it's taken this long to give Zelda her own game. Nintendo has a long track record of innovating only in fits and spurts in regards to gameplay, and barely at all in regards to story. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are an aberration in their tentative approach to innovation. For the longest time, placing Zelda in the protagonist role was too much of a change for them to risk. There will always be that vocal minority of players who cry foul anytime the protagonist lacks a Y chromosome before they've so much as watched a trailer. Seriously, touch grass, guys. But that won't hurt Nintendo's bottom line. Zelda isn't absolutely required to play a damsel in distress role in every single game. In the gameplay model championed by Onuma doesn't have to keep Link as the sole protagonist every single time. But no, that would be too experimental. Until Breath of the Wild gave them enough license, as they see it, to push the envelope a little bit more. Echoes of Wisdom continues a positive trend in the Zelda franchise. The item and enemy summoning system builds on the creatively focused gameplay of Tears of the Kingdom. Seemingly, this modification from the typical gameplay format was just enough of a difference for Nintendo to stomach someone else behind the wheel besides Link. It meets the parameter Aonuma and Miyamoto laid out. In their minds, as long as the game followed the traditional gameplay format, the protagonist had to be Link. Echoes is their chance to try something new, and they used the Link's Awakening Chibi line of games rather than the main series to present their experiment. Essentially, they put the impetus on the gamer to decide whether or not we like having Zelda in the driver's seat. They did so in a tepid, toe-dipped-into-the-water kind of way, but that's progress. They'll use sales metrics and focus testing to determine whether the Echoes experiment worked or not, regardless of how the gaming community feels or whether the parameters of their experiment were flawed by coming from what is essentially a spin-off. For a franchise as well loved as The Legend of Zelda, I can understand the trepidation. But Nintendo's hesitance to make Zelda playable feels like a missed opportunity to expand the series from a narrative perspective, and give the fans what they've been asking for a long time. With each new release, fans are always a little disappointed by not even having the option of playing as Zelda. We don't want to lose Link, obviously, but it's a waste to just leave Zelda up on the shelf. I'm glad that Nintendo has finally started to break with tradition a little, and live in the hopes that they will eventually embrace the potential of all their characters. After all, in a world as rich and expansive as Hyrule, there's plenty of room for more than one hero. What do you think? I'm Elekidra, and this is Growing Up a Gamer, Why Nintendo Refuses to Make a Fighter Out of Zelda. Thanks for watching. We make new videos every month, so check back soon if you want to hear more. And please leave a comment down below, as the discourse is my favorite part of making these videos. See you next time.